Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Haziq bin Zamani. I'm from class 3A and my partner name is Muhammad Hafiz Asyraf from class 3A. So I'm gonna explain about how the code works, how the coding works. Now let's take a closer look at the code to see how it works, so that you are able to modify it to fulfill your needs. The first thing you need to do is to include the ESP8266 Wi-Fi in the Arduino in the library. So here is the coding, and as mentioned previously, you need to insert SSID and password in the following lines inside the double quotes in the right here. Okay, next, then you need your web server to put at port 80, right? This coding, and the following line creates a variable to store the header of the HTTP request. Next, you create auxiliary variables to store the current state of your outputs. If you want to add more outputs and save its state, you need to create more variables, such as for our assignment we put the 3 output here. Is that output green state, output yellow state, output red state. Then you also need to assign a GPIO to each of your outputs. Here we are using GPIO output. We output green 5, output yellow port 4, output red port 16. Then setup. Now let's go into the setup. The setup function only runs when your ESP first boots first. We start a serial communication at about rate of 115/200 for debugging purposes. Serial begin right here. Serial begin in the bracket 115/200. You also define your GPIOs and outputs at set them low. Okay, right here. Our GPIOs low, and then the following lines begin the Wi-Fi connection with Wi-Fi begin SSID password. Wait for a successful connection and prints the ESP IP address in the serial monitor right here. The SSID and password and serial monitor. Then here we print our Wi-Fi connected, and then next is loop. In the loop, we will program what happens when a new client establishes a connection with the web server. The SPS is always listening for incoming clients with this line. Right here, Wi-Fi client server available. When a request is received from a client, we will save the incoming data. The while loop that follows will be running as long as the client stays connected. We don't recommend changing the following part of the code unless you know exactly what you are doing. Here we don't change anything here. Then until here, alright. Then the next section of it and else statement, check which button was pressed in your web page and control the output accordingly. As we have seen previously, we may request on their different URLs depending on the button we press. From here, if header, our output, and until here. For example, if you press the yellow, example, if you press the output red, on button, the URL change to the ASP IP address followed by 16 off, and we receive the information on the HTTP header, so we can check if the header contains the expression get 16 off also. If it contains the code, prints a message on the serial monitor. Change the output rate variable to on and turns the LED on. This works similarly for the other buttons. So if you want to add more output, you should modify this part of the code to include them. Displaying the HTML web page. So for the HTML, the next thing you need to do is generate the web page. The ASP8266 will be sending a response to your browser with some HTML next to display the web page. The web page is sent to the client using the client print. Function, you should enter what you want to send to the client as an argument. The first text you should always send is the following line that indicates that we are sending HTML. Doc type HTML right here, search here, and then the following the line makes the web page responsive in any web browser. This coding will be responsive. The next one is used to prevent requests related to the favicon. You don't need to worry about this line. Styling the web page. Next, we have some CSS to style the buttons and the web page appearance. We choose the Helvetica font, define the content to be displayed as a block and align at the center. Here. And then button class, where we style our buttons with the some properties to define color, size, border and others. Then we define the style for a second button with all the properties of the button we have defined earlier, but with a different color. This will be the style of the button. Setting the web page first heading. In the next line, you set first heading of your page. You can change this text to whatever you like, displaying the buttons and corresponding state. Then you write a paragraph to display the GPIO, the output current state. As you can see, we use the output variable so that the state updates instantly when this variable change. Then closing the connection. Finally, when the response ends, we clear the header variable and stop the connection with the client with client stop. Such this. That's all from me. Thank you.